There needs to be no connectivity between them besides network connectivity. So there doesn't necessarily need to be domain or even forest connectivity between the two to essentially provide a highly available replica or even a standalone replica of being able to essentially take that virtual machine and replicate it someplace else. So if you've got a small SharePoint environment, you're doing, God forbid, a single SharePoint server standalone, you want to make sure that you've got another copy of it someplace else, you can literally just set up it to automatically replicate to someplace else. If your primary server goes down, you just turn the other one on. So it becomes a poor man's version of your ability to do this. So there's no additional cost for this. There's no licensing for this above and beyond Windows Server. There's no additional software to manage or anything along those lines. Taking it up a notch, you can do things like clustering to essentially have the same thing be highly available. So you've got that SharePoint VM and it fails over the cluster. Essentially, it will automatically spin itself up someplace else. Once again, this will work with with SQL on the back end, as well as SharePoint on the front end. It gets a little bit complicated once you start to spread out the roles and do some of the things that we all know you can do with SharePoint for your app servers and so on. So I'm not saying it's simple, but keep in mind some of the virtualization scenarios that are now available in Windows Server. Add that to the scenario. The other thing that I do like to point out as well is we do have something that's also included in here that's called a shared nothing live migration. So some of you might be familiar with something that from VMware that's called essentially vMotion, where essentially or in storage vMotion, where they've got essentially a virtual machine and they move it someplace else. The storage, the virtual machine, everything, they move it someplace else. And it's relatively expensive, and there is fairly high requirements to do that. Inside of Windows Server, once again, if you have a VM running SharePoint, we have something that's called shared nothing live migration. Once again, no additional software, but I can essentially take that SharePoint workload, migrate it someplace else, and while it's up and running. So I've essentially moved it from point A to point B in the middle of the day, and it could be, SAN attached over here, direct attached storage over there, or a fiber channel here, and iSCSI there. There's no real requirement for this, and it's doing this in real time, keeping the workload up and running in the middle of the day. There's no additional licensing, no additional infrastructure that you need to do this. Right? It's just Windows Server and the virtualization that's there. So just check it out. I put up my information on the board up here. Essentially, my blog has some of this information up here on Windows Server. The bottom link is a shortened URL to eval links for things like Windows Server and also Microsoft Virtual Academy and Windows Azure, for trials and things like that. Microsoft Virtual Academy, the last thing I'll call your attention to is just Microsoft's free e-learning platform. We just came out with it this summer. So you think of e-learning, you're thinking about, okay, hold on, I got to sign up and pay for something from New Horizons or Learning Tree or whatever your training partner is. No, this is a free e-learning platform for Microsoft. So there's only limited content up there right now for for SharePoint, but essentially this is being written by the product group, and this is for the purposes of learning about the platform, not necessarily certification. People will say, oh, well, geez, isn't that essentially what your the Microsoft education and certification thing is for? Yes, that's focused on certification. The Microsoft Virtual Academy has lots of different courses above and beyond just Windows and so on. This is an area for you to essentially just look at and learn more about the platform. They are starting to add some developer content in there as well, so it's not just IT professional related stuff, but it's an area that Microsoft is doing a major investment in. So I encourage you to check that out.
I just hope the code works in there.
The what?
The code works in there.
Yeah, the
code samples were notoriously horrible on MSDN.
That's and I think the code samples are going to continue to stay on MSDN, so I don't think they're necessarily replacing that or any of the stuff that's being leveraged today. I don't believe they're going to move that into Microsoft Virtual Academy.
But so many times you try that stuff on MSDN and it's got errors and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes from the community, right? So
well, no, it does. This is stuff that comes directly from Microsoft.
Some of it will come from our, one of our consulting partners or something like that, or it'll be done on a job that wasn't necessarily done for that purpose. Oh look, Jason's calling me.
Okay.
So he must know I'm talking to a SharePoint audience. Most of you folks might know Jason Gliccio, who's our SharePoint PFE, and I'm up here talking to a SharePoint group, and he's calling me. It's 6:15 at night, so he must know I'm here. But anyway, so as I said, I'm your local evangelist. I'm happy to, just share a little bit of tidbits of information when I come out and see the groups on an occasional basis. But I just wanted to thank Catherine for continuing to run the group and carrying the flag for the Sharepoint. A great turnout here tonight. So thank you guys for support and community. If you have questions, feel free to ping me on my blog. Do contact requests on stuff like that. I'm generally around, at the very least a few times a month. We've got some Windows 8 launch activities coming up in the next few weeks, as I'm sure you wouldn't be a surprise to anyone. So a lot of that stuff's coming up, and we're doing a lot of IT camp related stuff as well. It really doesn't apply to the SharePoint workload, but in case you've got other things to do in your daily job, talking about Windows Server and Windows 8, it seems to be the next thing that we're spending a lot of time talking about. So if you're so interested, I'll be posting more information on that on my blog. Okay. So thank you, Catherine.
Well,
appreciate the time, and thank you guys for coming out.
Thanks for your... Now we have our GigWorks representative here again tonight. Do you want to? And I want to show. I'll show this too. Yeah, he's just going to say a word or two.
It'll literally be like 2 words. No. All right. So hi everybody. I'm with GigWorks. My name is Philip Stathis. GigWorks has been sponsoring the user group for about 2 years now.
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yep.
2.5 years now. I've only been with GigWorks for 1.5 years, but still, I'm just here to listen to the presentation about InfoPath. I'm actually a developer there, so I do a lot of workflows and code. So if you want to ask me about that, I'll do that. Next up, we'll show a video.
Yeah, I'm going to show a little bit of the video because I just got turned on to this today. That GigWorks has a channel, and I can't believe they're doing this because I don't think it's making them any money. But they have a lot of these web casts that they're doing, and they're putting them on YouTube on their channel. And I just checked out the SharePoint 2003 preview for developers today. I'm it's like, whoa, dude, this is really good. This is Neil Barkina who's doing this. So I'm just going to recommend that you guys look at this. It's youtube.com user GigWorks. I don't know if you can see the URL there. youtube.com GigWorks. This is like a 25-minute, and it pops out. It's not doing it right now. I don't know why. Where is it? But it gives a very quick overview of the, and this is, I'm trying, why am I not seeing the little scrolly bar? I don't know. I did, when it goes to the monitor, something's happening. I wanted to get beyond this to show you what it's talking about, but I'm not seeing the scrolly bar for some reason.
Click on the down arrow on the right.
Yeah.
Huh? Down arrow.
Go to the right.
Go to the right.
Keep going.
Keep going, keep going.
Keep going. All right there.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
No, no.
No, hide that.
A little more.
Hide the playlist. Oh, now I can get there. Yeah, so I wanted to get beyond this. Yeah. So it goes into the stuff about the cloud, and just in 25 minutes, it describes the whole thing. So you can say, ooh, I'm interested in this, or I'm not interested in this. I love this when it's 25 minutes, So on a lunch hour, I can just look at this. It's clear, it's Neil Barkina doing it, and you can say, oh, I'm not really interested in this, or, oh, wow, I've got to get on this right away. And they've got, you've got 60 of these in here. It's unbelievable how many of these webcasts they have on YouTube. And they're all a little less than half an hour. So and it talks about this new app model and how it's, using client-side code, and it's all about the new features in 2013 development, which is really different, folks. Because now we're going to be in the cloud, and you're going to have, you don't even need to be on a SharePoint server anymore to develop. Everything's, you can still do the old type of programming, but you can run on the client model is now massively bigger, and you can use jQuery and JavaScript. It's all about HTML5, CSS, jQuery, and JavaScript now, with this vastly expanded client model for getting into SharePoint. And you can make full-page applications and stick them right into SharePoint because it's like an app, right? Or web parts or custom actions. So, I mean, and it's all working with web services because it's not running on the server, right? So this is like a whole new paradigm. So I'm trying to find somebody who has actually had experience. If anybody knows anybody who's actually writing this, at the end of this video there's a simple example of how to write one of these apps for SharePoint. So if anybody knows anybody who's writing it, I'm trying to get a speaker who can actually say, yeah, I'm doing it. Because that is going to be a real game changer. And it's going to open up SharePoint programming to Java developers because you're going to be able to use Java as well. So you're going to be able to use, I think, Ruby on Rails, all the web languages. So it's not going to just be .NET anymore, which is really cool. Okay? So I just wanted to turn you on to that because I started to look at all the stuff they have here, the playlist, see all, I think that's the playlist. I'm not even a YouTube user, so I didn't even, and you have to go to the channel because, and I don't know why YouTube always does this. It immediately starts showing the American Horror Story. I don't know how it does. Yeah, it's like I avoid YouTube because it's always going some crazy place that I have no interest in it. But this is youtube.com user and GigWorks. But you can also search for it, right? And you go like GigWorks. Should it come up? No.
No doubt.
Oh yeah, the SharePoint channel. Yeah. And then you get it. YouTube user GigWorks. Okay, so much for that. So I really encourage you to go over there. There's a lot of things on just a vast array of subjects, governance and business users, and so it's not just developer stuff over there. And what are you doing, like 2 of these a week?
Yeah,
It's like unbelievable.
it's about, getting ready for 2013. Everybody's like learning.
Yeah, but I mean, to prepare a talk like that is a lot of work. I know, because I've done it. And you guys are shooting those out like every week. It's unbelievable. Okay, so tonight we're going to continue with our talk about InfoPath. We're going to go into programming. We're going to do 2 parts. I'm going to do an introduction just to explain what it is. And then Ludmilla is going to give a practical example of a higher level application of what you would do with this. Okay? So I've got a book that you guys should get. I don't know if you know this guy. Wong, I don't know how to say his name. It's S-Y-M Wong, A